Joined now by our good friend Todd Leary. Todd, how's it going, brother?
It is going great. How about you, bud?
Good. I was trying to get Jake to play Welcome Back, Cotter. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
Hey, I missed 1 week, and all of a sudden you're throwing jokes at me.
I wasn't even talking about that. I was talking about Welcome Back to Indiana.
Oh, okay. I like it. Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't crack on you for that, man. But now that you brought it up.
Yeah, you absolutely would. You think you did all week, actually, with my text messages.
How's it going, brother?
It's going good. I'm doing great. As you alluded to, I moved, had a good job change and moved back to Indiana and live in Evansville. And I've been here for a week, and I've had to see Pat Graham 3 times already. And so there's the negative side of it. So I've got that out of the way. Everything else is great.
Yeah, but who's that a negative for, you or him?
Well, it depends on which one you're asking.
I promise you. But, yeah, you all could you could almost start a reunion basketball team down there. You add Calvert Chaney to the mix.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be even worse than it was back then when we just threw him the ball and stood there and watched, because Pat and I are so far out of shape, I don't think there would be much contribution from the two of us.
Yeah, I saw a picture. Pat posted some pictures. He was fishing down at Lake Barkley. He had a big old group with him, man, but big time fishing going on.
He is big time hillbilly. You are right on the
money. Oh, man, he's too big for me to say that, man. He's much too big for me in all ways. A lot going on. Indiana baseball, man. They got bounced out of the Big Ten tournament after winning the Big Ten championship. Didn't win a game out in Omaha. I don't know if you follow baseball much.
Yeah, I do. Obviously, on social media stuff, having so many IU people on Facebook and stuff like that, that's kind of how I've followed most of it. But, I don't follow baseball that closely. But when Indiana is doing well in college baseball, it's kind of fun to follow that. And, it's that whole thing of, that's your alma mater and where you went to. Heck, we end up following everything. I just wish I wish back in school, that was one of the things we were more a part of. I wish we'd gone to more soccer games. And obviously we went to the football games and things like that, but I just wish there was more involvement and interaction between the basketball team and some of the other sports. But, it's a little late for me to worry about that now.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I agree. I think about that all the time. Just as a student, I wish that I would have done a lot more. Like you mentioned, the soccer program. It was great then. It's great now, but it was great then. And I wish I would have been more involved in. I mean, it doesn't matter. Volleyball, who cares? Yeah. I wish I'd have been much.
I totally agree. I mean, we would. There was very little. Crossing paths with a lot of the other sports, because in basketball, we had our own workout facility and all that in Assembly Hall. And, we just didn't end up crossing paths with people that much. We had our own training room. We had our own trainer. We had our own workout facility. And so it just, that's one of the things that I think is overlooked by a lot of programs. But I do think people are doing it better now and doing a lot better job of it when you've got you've got the big sports complexes that these universities are putting together, these multi-million-dollar workout facilities and practice facilities. I think it does lead more to putting all the programs together where there's more interaction. But yeah, it's like you said, at the time, it was just always, I felt like I was too busy. I felt like we had too much going on, and you're always trying to get a nap if you ever have free time. And, later on in life, that's just one of the things you wish you'd have done different.
Absolutely. A lot going on, a lot to talk about today, really, much more than normal. One of the things I was talking about earlier is a lot of people really give a lot of grief to Fred Glass. And I've been one of those people. I can openly admit that. But the more I think about it, I'm like, man, if you look at the overall picture of Indiana athletics right now, it's really trending in a pretty damn good direction. You got all these facility upgrades. The stadium's enclosed. It looks great. They just got a new building for wrestling and volleyball. Some great hires and coaches for that. Baseball's doing well. Soccer obviously doing well. Swimming and diving is back to where it used to be. The women's basketball team is doing well. The women's golf team just qualified for the NCAA for the first time in a long time. So many good things. And he catches a lot of grief. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know that it's really warranted.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it comes down to the situation of, I think Indiana's a basketball school, and when you want to be super specific or, egotistical about it, from my perspective, it's a men's basketball school, and when that program is not, one of what the fans consider top five, or an all-time top five program like it had been for so many years. I think you get judged based on that 95% of people's opinion of you, and all the other good stuff can probably add up to 5%. And so it could work out exactly the opposite. He could be doing horrible and have a bunch of terrible hires, and every other program be doing poorly, and the basketball program make the Final Four 3 out of 4 years, and everybody think he's the greatest AD in the world. So, he's in a situation where he is going to be judged a lot based on the history of the school and the men's basketball program, and that's what you sign up for when you take a job like that. Same way with Archie. I mean, those guys, they took the job knowing how big the basketball program is, and that's just a part of it, I think.
It's funny you say that. I said the exact same thing, but I just didn't say it nearly as eloquently as you did. You just nailed it.
Yeah, a lot of people get that. I mean, I'm so smooth in how things got roll off my tongue. It's just don't
silver
judge
tongue
yourself
devil,
based
baby.
on that, Jim.
Another thing, it came out yesterday. Mark Emmert, I call him Muppet Mark Emmert, but the head of the NCAA, a 60% increase in salary. He makes nearly $4 million a year. And that comes out now. We just had like a month or so, or maybe 6 weeks ago, Adidas signed that new deal with Kansas, a blockbuster deal. All this stuff going on in the midst of the FBI corruption stuff that's going on with college basketball. Is that just not good timing to do stuff like that?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably, it doesn't work out great. And that's one of the things, I'm sure, from their perspective, they kind of hope would not be publicized as much as it really is. But, these situations like this, and you get, it's very difficult. And I think there's a lot of part of my life I would have made a judgment on, what kind of job I thought Fred Glass was doing, or, the president of the university, or the president of the NCAA. And I don't even know these people. I know Fred Glass fairly well, and everything that's ever had anything to do with me, he has been great and nothing but professional. So how could I ever think anything negative about him or the job that he's doing? And, when you're talking about situations like what the NCAA is dealing with, and, is there ever going to be a good time when name a president of a situation like that? I mean, look at the guy that runs the NFL, and look at all the people that are in such huge positions. Everybody has a problem with them, it seems like. Everyone wants to talk about how negative things are for them, and I don't know a lot about what his day-to-day job is. It'd be kind of difficult and silly for me to criticize what he does, but I would say the timing and everything of someone in that position announcing a huge salary increase, yeah, obviously that's a poor situation and poor timing. But I don't really know enough about what he does on a day-to-day basis to have a great opinion of whether I think he's good or bad.
Michigan basketball, big news for them is John Beilein is replaced by Juwan Howard. It's just kind of funny. All the Fab Five guys are all about talking about, we get back to the culture, blah, 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 which I think kind of funny, because I don't really know what kind of culture that was. They didn't really win anything. Yeah. They had some cheating going on. John Beilein, Jalen Rose commented that there was no McDonald's All-Americans and blah, blah, but yet he won 2 Big Ten titles. He went to 2 national championship games, and he did it cleanly. So it's just funny that they want to get back to some culture.
Yeah, I mean, that's a situation they're going to try to put a positive spin on whatever, however they can. That's a shock. I mean, I don't think any when you look at his age, John Beilein's age, and where he is in his career, the peak of his college basketball coaching career right now at Michigan, I sure didn't see that on my radar as a coach that might be moving on, especially to the NBA or starting a new career path. When you're up there in age like he is, so I didn't see that happening for Michigan or at Michigan. So they're going to put a positive spin on whoever ends up taking that job. I mean, I always thought Juwan Howard I thought he was the toughest guy when we would put game plans together. We, like Coach Knight and I, got together and did that. When Coach Knight would put a game plan together for the Fab Five, I'm telling you, a lot of it focused around Juwan Howard, and I know Chris Webber and Jalen Rose got the majority of the publicity, but Juwan Howard was the guy who, I mean, he dominated a lot of games, and yes, he had a long NBA career. It's hard to say he didn't get the notoriety, but out of the Fab Five, he was definitely the third most popular person out of that group, and he was a tough player. He was a very tough guy to defend, and he could do a lot of different things. And I'm interested to see how a guy like he will do in coaching. It's just not been too many guys that have stepped in and made a huge impact. And when you're talking about the situation he's stepping into, I mean, he's the culture better provide something, because he is stepping into a program that's not in decline. It's not in a bad situation. So he's got to have some success really quickly, or it's going to look like a poor move.
Yeah, and I have said it a couple times this week, or since this came about, that I think that this has a large part, a reflection on what's going on at Memphis with Penny Hardaway and the splash that he's made in the recruiting. And even though he didn't have, he coached in AAU, but he had no collegiate head coaching experience, or coaching experience, period, for that matter, at the collegiate level. But he's made this gigantic splash with the #1 recruiting class. And kids today, man, they want that big splash hire, that NBA look and all that. And I think that's a big part of why maybe that he got the job.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we got to make some excuses somehow how he got the job, because it's not based on he had a great college coaching career at a different place, and now this is the next step up for him, or he's the natural fit when the head coaching position became available. I mean, I know you and I talked about during the week Dane Fife being a perfect match. Now we're also IU homers, so we're gonna root for the guy who has a tie to the Indiana basketball program. But it'll be tough. It'll be a few years before they can really judge. They'll say what they say every time they hire somebody new. Until he gets his players, you can't really judge what kind of job he's doing, and that buys him a few years at least anyway. But it's a tough position to step into. They have had an enormous amount of success, and they've not necessarily done it with top 5 recruits all year long, or a Fab Five program. So we'll see how that ends up playing out.
Someone I do think is going to be a hell of a head coach one day, and Michael Lewis, who just got a new job out in Los Angeles with Mick Cronin and UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, that's I root big time, obviously, for all the IU guys and the assistant coaches across the country. And I think I've said on the show enough times how much I think of Michael Lewis as a person and a coach, and he was such a competitor and just the kind of guy that I'd love to root for. I mean, that whole Tom Coverdale, Michael Lewis, tough, gritty attitude guy that's what makes college basketball fun to me versus watching the NBA and some of that stuff. So. I'm super happy for him. I think he'll do great. He'll bring a lot to that program. I think I said it to you before, and I think we both agree. It won't be very long before he's named a head coach somewhere, and he'll do a great job in that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, he is a super great guy, but I think he's a good coach. He still has that grit that you talked about that was the hallmark of his playing career, and something that a lot of players lack today, a lot of teams lack today, and it's good to see. Would have loved to see him on the IU staff.
Yeah, I would too, and it's just some things are just not meant to be and not to work out that way. And I think he would have been a great fit. I think he could have brought in, that Michael Lewis, that Archie Miller type player where they ran the program. They were there for 4 years. They're probably from the state. Now that's me being a homer again, but I think he would have brought in that player that I love to watch play. I don't know if you can do that at a place like UCLA. It'll be interesting to see if he can, and that's something that obviously we know how that affects Indiana basketball, but I'm not sure other big time programs and national programs look at it the same way that Indiana has for years because they watched Bob Knight do it so many, year after year with so many different teams. So
Yeah.
that's my third quota of 3 Bob Knight references in one phone call. So I can stop saying it.
The IU connection to UCLA continues. It's kind of odd. I mean,
Yeah,
he's there now, and then you had Steve Alford before him, and then you can go away from that and just have an Indiana connection. Obviously, John Wooden. So, the history of UCLA and its current state as well, a big, big connection with Indiana.
Yeah, it is kind of strange, but it just seems to keep working out that way. But like I said, I think Michael will do great. It wouldn't matter what school I thought he went to. I think he'll have a huge impact on it, and he'll be one of those guys that is an assistant for a couple years, and then after that, he'll move on and get a decent sized coaching job pretty early.
Well, is that a good location for him to be right now?
I don't see how it could be bad. I mean, he was he probably got as much publicity as an assistant coach at Nebraska as you could get. I mean, he was. You could watch timeouts, and I'm one of those nerds that watches what happens when guys go to timeout and all that. And the head coach always seemed to go right to Michael when they would go to a timeout and be drawing up plays and talking to players. And getting to do that at UCLA on national TV more often, if he can avoid Bill Walton and any influence that Bill Walton could have on him out there, then I think he'll do just fine.
Well, he's already hit the In-N-Out burger. But, Todd, thank you, sir. Welcome back, and I appreciate you as always.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you very much, and look forward to talking to you next week.
Hey, thanks for listening to the rebroadcast from today's edition of Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, the only daily show dedicated to Indiana University athletics. You can catch us live each weekday on IndianaSportsBeat.com, TheDailyHoosier.com, GruelingTruth.com, or go to Spreaker.com for live notifications. Yeah, that's speaker with an R, SPREAKER.com. You can also catch the entire show any place you listen to a podcast, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, etc. You can find and follow the show on Facebook or follow me on Twitter at Jim Coyle ISB for complete coverage of the Indiana Hoosiers. Thanks again. I hope you have a great day. I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.